Welcome to Socially Served. I'm your host, Frank Sroka. And as you know, Socially Served was basically formatted for you, the consumer, so you can make informed choices about programs and services. And today with me, I have Managing Director of Artscape Wychwood Barns, Margo Welch, and she'll be joining us today. But right before that, we have an important message from our sponsor, Equitech Employment Solutions. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Equitech Employment Equity Solutions is Canada's #1 subscription-based outreach provider. Equitech's outreach network takes your employment posting and job information and distributes it directly to over 800 outreach partners nationally. Driving the qualified candidates you're looking for right to your door. So why not connect to the largest diversity broadcast portal and be a part of Equitech's diverse and comprehensive outreach strategy today. Check us out at www.equitech.ca. Socially Served is sponsored by Equitech Employment Equity Solutions.
Welcome back to Socially Served, and thank you for joining us today. With me in our studio, we have Margo Welch, Managing Director of Artscape Wychwood Barns. Welcome, Margo.
Thank you.
So nice to have you here.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. I'm just, so enthralled with the facility here at Artscape, the Barns, I can affectionately call it, right?
Yes.
It's such a community hub, and when you come here, there's just so much to see, and it's so diverse and so accessible, which is wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I just thought maybe perhaps you can give our viewers a little bit of a history of the Barns.
I'd be delighted to. For those who do not know Artscape, Artscape has existed for about 30 years, and our mission is to make space for creativity and transform communities. And this is a value that we share, and we have proven that the arts and culture are a terrific way to bring people together and involve everyone interested, and has enormous benefits for the broader community and neighborhood. So Artscape Wychwood Barns is one of 11 facilities that Artscape operates, and the Barns has just turned 9 years old.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and the other, we have, as I mentioned, 11 other buildings. Our offerings include workspace for artists and organizations, and some of the spaces are for working only, some spaces are for live and work, and it's a combination of things in response to the communities in which we're situated.
It's amazing. So it's sort of like an artist in residence type of program format?
There can be artists in residence. Sometimes it's just individuals who need a space to do their work. At the Barns, we have 50 tenanted spaces.
Wow.
26 of those are live workspaces, so we have 26 artists and their families living here. We have 14 studios that are for artists to work only in. They don't live there. And then we have about 10 organizations here as well.
Wow.
Yourselves included.
Yes. I'm happy to be here. So pleased to be here. So I guess it all kind of starts about, and in the conception of sort of Artscape and the Barns, and it all starts with vision. And maybe you can tell our viewers a little bit of how this all started in terms of the idea, the vision, and how that all came about.
Yeah, the facility started off as a streetcar repair barn in 1913, and the additional barns were built over the course of about 10 years, so that there were a total of 5 barns. They were active for many years, and then the Toronto Transit Commission moved repairs elsewhere, and the barns were empty for at least a decade, and the entire site, which is about 5 acres, was all boarded up. The So once the city determined that they were going to get rid of the barns, it was an unused facility, initially it was going to be sold. And that's when the community really rallied and said that they did not want just condominiums housing built in this location. And they wanted something more interesting. They wanted really a facility that the community could access. And there were very long debates about whether this would just be parkland or whether or not the buildings themselves could be preserved. The councillor, Joe Mahevic, was very involved right from the beginning. There were real battles about the future of the space.
I bet.
And eventually he claims he ran 2 elections on the barns. Eventually it was determined that the buildings could be preserved and repurposed. And that's when Artscape was brought in to work with the community and the city and other stakeholders on what might be possible here. Artscape spends a lot of time starting on with community stakeholders, and it's a really from the ground up development process. We know that unless people are very involved, we can't produce something that will respond to needs and have it be successful. So this facility had an 8-year planning process.
Wow.
And people are usually pretty shocked by that.
Right.
That includes 2 to 3 years at the end of it where money had to be raised, $23 million, and of course construction started. And it opened in November 2008.
Wow, that's quite the process, and I think when you're speaking about community and this being a community hub, the one impressive feature here when you sort of walk in the doors of Artscape is that sort of I don't know what you call it, the grand atrium, or what would you call that? Where the events are held, the venues.
It has a very unglamorous name.
See, I'm making it glamorous.
It's called Barn 2.
Barn 2.
Yes, it's there are many buildings now in Toronto that are what's called repurposed. So they were big industrial buildings and fell out of disuse, and in the old days they'd be knocked down and something else would replace them. This was one of the earlier projects of its type, where people just said, no, these are beautiful buildings and they're structurally sound and they should be kept. So we're thrilled because indeed it is, the structure is magnificent, and Barn 2, our event space, is this raw industrial space that is transformed every event or activity that takes place in it.
So the events could be from festivals, they can be to private functional events for occasions. It could be awareness events, that type of thing. And I know you have a farmer's market here.
Yes, and there's a lot of activity that happens in Barn 2. There's also a lot of activity that happens in the studio spaces.
Yes.
So like you, other tenants offer programming, classes, and ongoing workshops. So there's always activity here. In Barn 2, it's a fabulous space for any kind of event. And yes, we enjoy markets, festivals, private events, weddings, pretty well, anything you can think of.
Well, I know on my first experience here, and this was a few days ago, I guess they had the festival, Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead.
And that was just phenomenal. And that was really an experience. And so what I'm going to do is actually go to a clip that we've actually compiled with our crew, and I want them to experience this whole ambiance of what happens here at the barn. So stay tuned, we're going to go to the clip, and we'll be right back.
1, 2, 3, maracas. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, bongo. Ahora. 5, 6, 7.
Día de los Muertos en Caracas vio, oh, 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 y el gringo se asustó. El Día de los Muertos el cabrón se arrugó, oh, 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 aquí en México. Day of the Dead, did you hear what I just said? Oh, 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 I didn't even know it was the Day of the Dead. I tried not to lose my head, oh, 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 way down in Mexico.
Well, welcome back to Socially Served. I hope you enjoyed that clip of the Day of the Dead celebrations. And we're back in our studios with Margo Welch. And I just, it's interesting to know that not only is this facility accessible, but we have to talk about inclusiveness, I guess. And just looking at that clip, you can actually see how the Barns kind of is truly a community hub in terms of its residents. And maybe you can talk about a little bit about
Absolutely. We're thrilled to have events happen here that are great variety. The Day of the Dead celebration, I confess, is one of my favorite events.
Mine too.
It's because it's first of all, it's fascinating, it's fun, it's busy and rich in what it offers. And the reason it's here is because we have a tenant who is part of a collective that does the whole organization for that event. And we have other tenants who are also operating facilities or creating events for the local and broader community to participate in. So we also have a theater here, the Wychwood Theater, and it's run by Solar Stage. And they are doing primarily children's theater, but not exclusively. Mm-hmm. We also have an art gallery, and it's a community gallery. It's open to anyone who would like to rent it. And we have great art shows and workshops and things happening there. And then within some of the other tenants' studios, for instance, The Stop, they run many programs. They're a food security organization, and they teach people how to grow food, how to harvest it, how to preserve it, and how to cook. And of course, food is probably the best way to bring people together, especially from diverse cultures and interests. So there's a lot going on, we're very keen to bring in groups and organizations to have events here from all walks of life, and we live in an incredible city, so there's a lot of variety.
Very diverse city indeed. And so now looking back at what's happened currently, let's move ahead, let's look forward. Now, what plans are in store here at the Barns?
Artscape has a new strategic plan called Artscape 5.0. And by the way, people can learn more about Artscape on our website. Very simple, artscape.ca.
I was going to ask you. Right.
And the strategic plan is there for you to look at, and information on our buildings, our philosophy, much of the work that we're doing. Currently for Artscape, there are 4 more buildings opening in the next few years.
Oh, do tell us.
Yes, there's Weston Common, Artscape Weston Common, and we're particularly keen about that hub because it is outside of the core, the downtown core. And up until now, all our facilities are really clustered in the old city of Toronto. That's scheduled to open in about a year. We have another major project on the waterfront, Artscape Daniels Launchpad, and that will have a maker's space in it. And that is a facility that has a lot of equipment and programs running out of it about entrepreneurship, about design, and you can purchase a membership and come and use that whole facility and access courses. And that's opening in a year's time.
Oh, this is excellent.
And in addition, there are more live workspaces opening up at the waterfront and on Queen West. So it's busy.
Revitalizing the waterfront and that landscape and catering to entrepreneurship, I guess.
It is.
So that's great. And that's really the engine that drives the economy is the entrepreneurship, I think.
It is. And artists are very entrepreneurial. They have
Absolutely.
to be.
They do. They have to.
They have to be to survive. So again, through our years of research and working with artists and communities, we've developed programs that are there to assist artists in really just making sure they're doing all they can to be successful.
Excellent. So actually we're going to go to another clip.
Okay.
And it's going to be past and present of the Barns.
Great.
And we'll be right back, so do stay tuned, and we'll be back with Socially Served. Well, I hope you enjoyed that clip, and welcome back to Socially Served. And Margo, I just wanted to ask you sort of now, kind of reflecting now, lessons learned, I guess best practices. What could you tell our viewers from this whole experience?
The importance of planning, and as I mentioned before, it was a 5-year planning process, so it's extremely important to understand the community that you're going to be in, what their interests are, how it will match what your organization or group wants to do. And that things change over time, so you have to continue to try and respond. We have one event that happens every Saturday that is organized by the Stop, and it's our farmers market. It happens about 26 weeks outdoors and 26 weeks indoors, so it's every Saturday morning. And that singular event really helped to bring local people to the Barns, and it is a huge social gathering now, as well as providing fantastic food to purchase, and that has helped us enormously, I think, in making sure people know about the facility and what's here to offer, that we can offer. Mm-hmm. I think the other lesson learned is, of course, we're a not-for-profit organization. A building like this is big and complicated, so it's important to understand the facility And to, when you're planning, to really plan for the operations, to be able to really care for it and keep things, in good shape. We spend a lot of time and money in just managing the facility. And if somebody hasn't had a space before, I think that can be a bit of a surprise. We're also a social enterprise. So our events, we charge rental fees for our events. We give discounts to not-for-profits. But the way we can do that is because we charge full price for corporate and private events.
Fair enough.
So it's a pretty complex operating model. And we've certainly had our challenges, but we continue to have our spaces all rented out. We continue to have a lot of activities. So we work hard to make it accessible and inclusive in all ways.
Well, thank you so much. Great advice and great take notes for further people that are interested in renting spaces here or knowing more about the barns. Could you provide us with your information again?
Absolutely. Artscape.ca is the website. If you're interested in particular information about what is going on at the barns, go to Artscape Wychwood Barns.ca, all one word.
Excellent.
And there's an event calendar there, and you can click on that and scroll through and learn about all sorts of events.
Terrific. Thank you so much for joining us today on Socially Served. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I just want to say how thrilled we are to have you here at the Barns.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're thrilled to be here. And thank you, viewers, for watching Socially Served, and we'll see you next time.